Hey, good morning. So today's text is Mark 8, verses 27 through 9:1. Um, and the real kind of core here, Peter has his confession that Jesus is in fact the Messiah, and then Jesus starts to talk about his death. He says, "He then began to teach them that the Son of Man must suffer many things and be rejected by the elders, the chief priests, and the teachers of the law, and then he must be killed and after 3 days rise again." He spoke plainly about this, and Peter took him aside But when Jesus turned and looked at his disciples, he rebuked Peter. "Get behind me, Satan," he said. "You do not have in mind the concerns of God, but merely human concerns." Then he called the crowd to him along with the disciples and said, "Whoever wants to be my disciple must deny himself, take up their cross, and follow me. For whoever wants to save their life will lose it, but whoever loses their life for me, for the gospel, will save it. What good is it for someone to gain the whole world and forfeit their soul? Or what can anyone give in exchange for their soul? If anyone is ashamed of me and my words in this adulterous and sinful generation, the Son of Man will be ashamed of them when he comes with his Father's glory with the holy angels." And he said to them, "Truly I tell you, some who are standing here will not taste death before they see that the kingdom of God has come with power." This is the word of the Lord. Um, I don't know if you've ever seen somebody play sports or um, make art. I mean, anything that um, is kind of recreational. I know back when I used to run, when I had time for such things, there's this tendency um, to make everything that you do about that activity, about your recreation. You want to build your whole life around it. You want to be successful. You want to be seen. You want to be recognized. You want to be strong, and all of those things. But there's a way to do those things well, and there's a way to do them poorly. And one of the ways to do them well is to recognize that as you play, as you are engaged in that recreation, that it's not the end of the world if it doesn't go well. If a race doesn't happen the way that it should, if a game doesn't go well, if the ball doesn't bounce your way, there's this phrase, it's just a game, right? This isn't life and death. This is something that we do recreationally. This is something that we're engaged in order to gain some kind of joy, but it is not the thing that is most ultimate. And if we don't understand that, if we start to think that our recreation is who we are, then we lose perspective. The things that matter crumble, they fall away. What happens is that life gets out of whack because we've taken it out of its natural setting and we've placed it into a new setting where it doesn't belong. Peter here confesses that Jesus is the Christ. He confesses that he's the Messiah. And then that's this, huge revelation from God. And then he comes at Jesus saying that he can't be right, that he's going to have to die. And we can't imagine this because 80% of the pictures we've ever seen of Jesus are him on a cross. Okay. So it's almost impossible for us to put ourselves in Peter's sort of mindset. But for Peter, the idea that Jesus would be killed is utterly counter to the idea that he is the Christ. To be the Christ, to be the Messiah, means that you win. And winning usually does not involve death. There's a phrase in Christian discipleship that says, memento mori is the Latin for it. Remember that you will die. And it's an important thing for us to learn to do, to remember that our lives are momentary, they're fleeting. And we put that into context, the sort of suffering, the difficulty, the joys, the challenge, everything that we experience in this life, it becomes like a game of basketball or a game of soccer or a race that you run or a piece of art that you create. It's important. It's vital. And it can even be all consuming for the time being, but it's not ultimate. It's not final. Because we understand what is final. We understand what is ultimate. And I've just really been struck with that phrase. It's a good phrase to keep in mind during Lent anyway, because as we embrace our sin, there's this reminder, hey, you might want to deal with this because one day you will die and you will face judgment, or this life is not final. There's going to be for those things. So that's one part of it during Lent. But the other part of it during this kind of crisis is, life is not final. My life's not final. Your life is not final or ultimate. And there will be a day when we come to our end. And the question at that time will be, were you willing to carry your cross? Were you willing? I mean, especially if you're somebody who already calls yourself a Christian, congratulations. I'm glad you're wearing our jersey and that whole thing. But are you willing to carry your cross? To do the thing that is most difficult now, to do the thing that maybe is unimaginable now because it takes your life out of this short-sighted frame and it puts it in the longer frame. But understand that heaven has broken in even here. And are you willing to go through the process of being transformed so that you can live in and love God in the midst of this moment here? Die. Remember that the things that you love naturally here and now are not final. And remember that God's desire for you is for you to be in his fellowship, even now. Take care. Be well, friends. Hope to see you soon.